Okay, I'd like to talk about privilege for a bit. So I think it's fair to say that I've had a privileged upbringing. I went to a really expensive private school. My parents lived in a very fancy house. We basically had anything we wanted. We'd go on holidays regularly. I've had a very privileged upbringing. And even beyond private school, in terms of education, I had tutors early on. I think later on they kind of like we stopped them, but to get into the schools, we had tutors when we were very young. And essentially, I've had a very privileged upbringing. And, very frankly, I think, a lot of people try to hide their privilege. I'm not quite sure why. I kind of like identify with my privilege as kind of part of me. I'm not ashamed of it. But in fairness, I do think it has made any of my success much, 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 much easier, right? And I think that I accept that. I mean, I was lucky to be privileged, and I've taken advantage of it. In fairness, right? Lots of people in my situation haven't. I think I also had the privilege of great parents, right? So they kind of really helped as well. That's also a big privilege. I thought it's probably even a bigger privilege than money, actually. Having really kind of like good parents who kind of like guide you through. And so basically, what I wanted to say was that, and my kids have had that privilege. I think my kids are even more privileged. I mean, they're all three of them brought up pretty directly by two Oxford grads. We've had money, we've had kind of everything we wanted, and the kids have had it really easy. And I do think any of their success must be therefore discounted by that massive privilege, just like mine should be. And the reason I'm sending this message is that I think many of you watching this are probably not that privileged. And what I'd say is that, it's unfair. It's like life. Life is unfair. Some people are born attractive, or not. They're not born attractive. They turn out to be attractive. Some people are more intelligent than others. Some people are born into money, and some aren't. Right? Some people are born in war zones, and some people are born in a period of everyone's different, right? And what I'm saying is, I think where people get it really wrong is that a lot of people who are born outside privilege think that those that are privileged are just simply better, right? So people think that I'm super intelligent because I went to Oxford, so I must be super smart. And that is what most people think. The reality is that I actually think that around 80%, 90% of people, I know probably better than you, right? I know lots of people who have gone to Oxford, Cambridge. I know what it takes to get there. And I'd say that a good 80, 90% of, I don't know, 90%, yeah, probably even 90%, but let's say 80% of kids are capable. In fact, I'd say 90%, and I'm just kind of like thinking this through. 90% of kids could probably get into Oxbridge. Now, there is a big element of luck, so I could have not got into Oxford myself. But because you go through a process, they can just reject you, and there is luck. There's a big element of luck in it. But what I'm saying is that most people are capable of getting into Oxbridge. And I just say that those that are born in difficult situations, I think it's just important to realise that it's the reason you've done not as well is probably in large part down to the fact you're not privileged, right? And that plays such a huge part. And just don't think that you're some kind of loser or whatever. I don't know how. There is almost no way I would have had the success that I've had had I been brought up in a difficult upbringing. It's like I am truly like really kind of like really impressed by people who come from difficult or disadvantaged backgrounds that do amazingly well, far more than someone who comes from a great background. But the reason for this video is really, I'm just trying to see, I just see so many people who are kind of like, they look at themselves and they look at their kids and whatever as failures. I'm just saying, look, everyone comes with different circumstances. And I think you've got to try doing as best you can, right? And I think just realize that, yeah, privilege is a massive disadvantage and, is a massive advantage. And I guess if you don't have it, you've got a massive disadvantage. And I think, just basically do what you can and work against it. It is possible to work against it. Yeah, the odds are, you shouldn't be looking at someone like, someone else like myself who's had it relatively easy and kind of thinking, oh my God, I must be so intelligent. I've done it so, it's kind of like, no, it's not because I'm intelligent. It's really, my success is largely down to my privilege, as will any of my kids' success likely be if they have it. They've got so much guidance. I mean, even when my daughter was applying to Oxford, she had like 2 Oxford graduates guiding her every step of the way. We were giving her practice interviews and this and that. We advised her what college to apply to, what to say in the interview, what not to say. I mean, life is all about privileges. But yeah, sorry, this is one of the key things I wanted to say. If you haven't been brought up in privilege, which is probably you, right? I think it's so important at least to try to get your family out of it. That's what I think you can do. And I know lots of people that have done that. So, for example, my own father basically was born in very, very, very poor conditions. And now, look, he's not alive anymore. But out of his, he's already got, look at his whole kind of family, he's got children, grandchildren doing phenomenally well. And that was done through hard work. So what I'm saying is, look, if you're not born in that situation, fine, accept it, right? You've got massive disadvantages, which people don't really talk about. I think what people do is they say, okay, well, you haven't done well. That's it. You're stupid or you're a loser or whatever. That's how society looks at it. No, I think that's the norm. If you're brought up you generally do as well as your upbringing, generally, right? I'm giving a very broad statement. And if you don't do that well, that's kind of like probably the reason your upbringing plays a big part in it. But all I'm saying is, look, if you can, to whatever extent you can, try to break yourself out of that, because I know people who have. It's difficult. You often need a mentor. I guess one of the reasons I'm saying this is I want to I'm not offering my mentor services. I'm a really busy guy, but I'm kind of like through YouTube trying to mass mentor, you could say. I just want you to try your best and turn your life around. I know someone who was brought up I knew him very well, brought up in an abusive background, and he ended up studying law at Harvard. And his driver was that. I can't remember actually what his exact driver was, but he, it really drove him to study hard. And he's, coming from a poor background. I think places like in the US, it's harder if you're poor to get into these top universities than it is the UK, where the UK is very they've made it very relatively easy for people from relatively poor backgrounds to get in. But in the US, I don't think it's like that. And so he's had a phenomenal career. And there are people who break that, and I'm just hoping. And I've seen it myself. I mentioned in other videos of the guy whose 2 parents were illiterate, who managed to go to King's College London, doing really well, and his whole family's kind of doing well because of that. So cutting a long story short, there's a guy who was 15 years old who I met, who I started kind of motivating, and he suddenly just changed his life around, started working really, really hard, and got into King's College London to do computer science. There's people like that, and all I'm saying is, look, if you haven't got that privileged upbringing, yeah, it's a lot harder. You probably won't do it. But all I'm saying is, look, there is also where there's a way, where there's a will, there's a way, and if you've got that fighting spirit, you can achieve. If you achieve as much as I've achieved, yeah, it would be. I know people who have. Obviously, there's lots of people who have achieved much more than I've achieved, and they've done it with way less, right? So there's a lot of luck involved as well. There's a lot of hard work involved. All I'd say is generally, I think, especially if you're young, but even if you're not so young, you've got one shot in this life, right? Hard work plays a massive role, and you just work hard. If you want to achieve something, don't give in, don't give up. There's many times in my life, believe it or not, where I felt I could have given up. It's not been easy. The ride here to where I am has not been as easy as it probably seems to most of you viewers. But yeah, I think one of the things where I think I've done really well is I don't give up. I just don't give up. I keep trying. And I think that's a very important quality, and I hope this video helps instill some of that quality in you.